Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your guy Rudy SKC. Welcome to a brand new video. So yesterday we talked about the offensive coordinator search for the Lions and how they're going to approach that. Today we're going to be mainly focusing on the candidates to replace Aaron Glenn on the defensive side for the Lions. As you can tell, I'm in the same clothes as I was in yesterday. And the reason for that is I'm actually recording back-to-back videos. So I'm recording these both on the same day. When you guys see this video, it's going to be, one day prior. So yesterday for you guys. But, I'm recording these videos back-to-back. So wearing the same clothes. Don't judge me before you get into the comment section. Just wanted to clear that up. So after the Lions, obviously it was a really heartbreaking loss to the Commanders. The first thing, and in my opinion, the Lions need to address, and I mentioned this in yesterday's video too, was that the Lions need to focus on getting two coordinators first, because obviously the Lions have emphasized that they want to continue to keep a lot of the same principles that have guided their success over the last few years. But first of all, you don't want to wait too long because the hiring cycle is continuing and it's at peak right now. But also at the same time, you as a Lions, before you make any other decisions involving personnel, you want to have the opinions of, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, defensive line coach, offensive line coach, because a lot of Lions coaches are presumed to be leaving this offseason, which really sucks. But, they've been with us for a long time and they've contributed to our success, and they're making waves, guys. They're making moves. You can't say anything about that. Let's talk about the defensive coordinator replacements. I think the one big thing that Dan Campbell mentioned for the Aaron Glenn replacement is that the Lions want to continue to emphasize running their press man schemes, right? Press man schemes. I'm actually going to talk about four defensive coordinator potential defensive coordinators in the video today. And there's one at the end. The last one kind of doesn't fit what Dan Campbell said, but me personally, I just think that he would be such a great candidate for the Lions, and that it would be a great move if the Lions did end up getting him, and if Dan Campbell he kind of is willing to compromise on that, because I think a lot of other stuff definitely align with the Lions identity. That's just that one thing, and I know it sucks it's the one thing he mentioned, but just a really great candidate I have saved up for you guys at the end. One thing I want to mention is one of the four candidates I will not be talking about today is Robert Saleh. And the reason is this, right? Robert Saleh would be an amazing fit for the Lions, right? He was, one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. He went to head coach the Jets, and in my opinion, not even his fault, just because of a lack of, terrible roster construction, terrible management, the Jets did not succeed. In my opinion, that was not on Saleh at all. Like, that was a terrible firing that the Jets did last year. For them to not retain Saleh as a coach, just a terrible move by them. And Jets fans, I've been a Lions fan. I've only been a Lions fan for 10 years, but as a fan of the franchise who's made terrible after terrible after terrible decision over the last 60 years, you guys are just like us. You guys have done pretty much the same thing. The only thing is you guys have one more Super Bowl to account for, and it was also the third Super Bowl ever. So you guys are pretty much in the same boat as us, okay? Pretty much. But yeah, terrible move by the Jets. The reason I will not be considering Robert Saleh as one of the four defensive replacement candidates is the dude is literally interviewing for head coach jobs right now. I saw a news article that he was interviewing for Jacksonville's open head coaching role. I think that for him, I really don't think that the best move for him in terms of his career is going to want to be coming to Detroit and being the defensive coordinator, because he has shown the pedigree to be a good head coach, and in my opinion, he's going to get one of those jobs, okay? So yeah, that's my little bit on Robert Saleh. I find it very unlikely that he goes back to being another defensive coordinator, and if he does, he's probably going to go back to, San Francisco, where he's, kind of comfortable. That's his coaching tree, right? So when all fails, you can always go back. You can always go back to the tree. That's generally what happens. Robert Saleh, he will not be on the list today. That being said, let me talk about my first candidate on the list, which shouldn't come as a shocker to anyone. and that's going to be Calvin Shepard, right? Shep, he's been our linebackers coach since Dan Campbell took over in 2021. There's a lot of really great articles and everything you can read about him online. Obviously, the great story about how initially when he came in, he wanted to cut his dreads, and then Dan Campbell told him that, I don't need you to try to be someone else. I need you to be yourself. He kept the dreads on. Yada, yada, yada. Great stories. Great TV on Hard Knocks, by the way. If you guys haven't seen that, Hard Knocks for the Lions, check it out. It's crazy that it's been like 2 years since that happened, but, great series. So, to me, the big thing about Calvin Shepard here is you have a huge scheme continuity from Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn on multiple occasions has said that he's been developing Calvin Shepard to be his understudy as his kind of replacement when he leaves, right? Just as Dan Campbell has said that he's been training Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn to both be head coaches with, their sessions on Thursday where they go through, review situations across the league and try to make decisions based on that. Similar to that, Aaron Glenn has said that, he's been training kind of Calvin Shepard to be the next guy, to be the next defensive play caller for the Lions. Not only that, Shep, he's done a great job being the linebackers coach, right? He's seen the development of Alex Anzalone. He's seen the development of Derek Barnes, right? Derek Barnes, huge project when he drafted him. You compare Derek Barnes to his draft day to Derek Barnes now, it's night and day, the work that Calvin Shepard has done. Alex Anzalone, he was a guy that a lot of people had given up on coming from New Orleans. As he's an all right piece. He's a Pro Bowl level player for the Lions, and he's the captain of the defense. You saw the effect that he had on the defense when he came back week 18 against the Vikings, right? And then you have Malcolm Rodriguez, 6th round draft pick, right? 6th round draft pick. And, Calvin Shepard, he's turned him into pretty good starter, and he'd probably start on a lot of other teams if he wasn't on the Lions. And then obviously you have Jack Campbell, 1st round pick this year, definitely had, showed huge improvement compared to his first year. Jack Campbell, I would definitely still love for him to, grow a little bit more, into that, first round kind of pedigree and become an all-pro level player. But we'll see if it happens, right? You're not mad if it doesn't happen. He's a good starter for you in this league. So to me, he's done a great job in that sense through development, and he's also been trained directly under Aaron Glenn, under what Dan Campbell feels comfortable with to become the next defensive coordinator for the Lions, right? So that's my first candidate, Calvin Shepard. My second candidate is also someone who has huge familiarity with Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn. That's Dennis Allen. Now, there are rumors that Ben Johnson is trying to hire Dennis Allen to be his defensive coordinator. Ben Johnson, please, for the sake of God, Dan Campbell, actually, for the sake of God, do not let Ben Johnson, beat you to the punch, right? They're saying Ben Johnson is assembling his dream squad of coordinators, and I don't think that the having the coordinator search this early, into the playoffs had an effect on the offensive and defensive coordinators. But if you're trying to tell me that Ben Johnson didn't know that he would take Chicago's role and that he wasn't already looking for people before, and maybe that impacted, how well he called the game for the Lions, I think there's some truth to that, right? So yes, Dennis Allen, he's been the defensive coordinator for the Saints for basically forever. I'm joking. For the past 8 years or so. Dan Campbell, Aaron Glenn, obviously huge familiarity with him when they were on the Saints coaching staff. Aaron Glenn, kind of his protege for Dennis Allen. Great defensive mind. The Saints steadily improved and became one of the top defenses in the NFL until Dennis Allen actually became the head coach. But you don't have to be a good head coach in the NFL to be a great to be a great coordinator. And Dennis Allen has proven that he's a great coordinator with a wealth of experience, and he has familiarity with Dan Campbell. And I would say that maybe Dennis Allen, compared to Aaron Glenn, he runs a lot more base packages than Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn does, or at least he did it over the last couple of years. There's a lot of mixed front packages between 4-3 and 3-4 defenses, and at times they actually used a 4-2-5 defense as their base. So kind of some differences, but you can see there's definitely a scheme continuity. Dan Campbell definitely comfortable with Dennis Allen coming in. Dennis Allen has proven track record of being great defensive mind in this league. So Ben Johnson, just wait for Dan Campbell to kind of have his interviews and talk to people, but I don't know. Sorry guys, this is as a Lions fan, I'm trying to find the best possible scenario right now. It feels like everything is going wrong, so trying to assure myself here, okay? So yeah, number 2 candidate is Dennis Allen. The number 3 candidate, this is very interesting, Aubrey Pleasant. If you guys remember back 2022, after the Dolphins game, I think that was week 6, the Lions fired Aubrey Pleasant, and since then they've had one of the best records in the NFL. They were 1-6 after that. And that was the game after the Dolphins game. Aubrey Pleasant, up to that point, yes, he was kind of scapegoated, but the Lions recognized that something needed to change, and they decided to make a change, and it ended up working out. Does that mean that Aubrey Pleasant is a bad defensive mind? Absolutely not. Aaron Glenn has even said on multiple times that, initially Aubrey Pleasant was kind of being groomed to be the next defensive coordinator for the Lions while he was still on the team. Aaron Glenn even talked about how great of a mind Aubrey Pleasant is, how great of a developer Aubrey Pleasant is, how great of a schemer Aubrey Pleasant is. He was on the Lions, and he's been on the Rams staff over the last few years after the Lions, and he was on the Rams staff before he was on the Lions too, right? Brad Holmes, that connection kind of brought along Aubrey Pleasant, as well as, Aaron Glenn having some familiarity with him. So he's very familiar with the Lions defense, so there's that level of continuity. And he did really, really well for the pieces he was given, right? You think about it. Tracy Walker, until he got injured, until he tore his ACL, he was basically playing at Pro Bowl level. Amani Oruwariye, for his first year, was looking like he could become number 1 lockdown cornerback, for the Lions. And then 2022 happened, and it was like the guy forgot to play football. So don't know what happened there, but at least for the first year that Aubrey Pleasant was, the only full year Aubrey Pleasant was here, Amani Oruwariye had his best year as a pro. Jerry Jacobs, he was an undrafted free agent in the 2021 draft class, and, under Aubrey Pleasant, he turned himself into a solid cornerback in the NFL. Now, is he a, lockdown all-pro, kind of Pro Bowl even level? No, but he was an undrafted free agent. You got to work with what you got. And then Jeff Okudah had pretty much his best year as a pro the year that the second year Aubrey Pleasant was here. So to me, the guy did a good job given the pieces he had. Now, if you look at the rest of the secondary, the Lions are a lot different now, much more talented in the secondary. And if you continue to stock that defensive line this year in the offseason, Brad Holmes, and in the draft, I think Aubrey Pleasant could end up being great fit. I don't know if there's any kind of issues between him and Dan Campbell, because Dan Campbell ultimately was the guy who made the decision to fire him. But if there isn't, I don't see why he can't be a great option to come back and replace Aaron Glenn, especially because he's gonna be this cycle. He's gonna be one of the more sought after defensive coordinators to replace a team's defensive coordinator. So Aubrey Pleasant, definitely great defensive mind. Great leader, great schemer. We've seen he has familiarity with the team, so I think that could totally be something for the Lions that they could look for in terms of replacing AG. And then there's the final one. So I mentioned in the beginning of the video that my last option, he kind of does not exactly fit what Dan Campbell said, but I still really like him. And that's Christian Parker, who is right now the pass game coordinator for the Eagles under Vic Fangio, right? So he was with Vic Fangio before in Denver. And I think that, Christian Parker is, yes, he's doesn't have necessarily maybe the level of experience as some of the other guys, right? But at the same time, he's one of the brightest defensive minds in the game, in my opinion, right? He's from the Fangio tree, which is a great start, right? But his hybrid schemes, the way he's able to confuse defense, is the thing that Philly and Denver has run. That's the type of defense that he's going to run. It's a very modern defense. The way they use their safeties, they use 2 high safeties, but they also use safeties extremely innovatively in nickel packages and in dime packages. And for the Lions, you have Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, and Ifeatu Melifonwu. Those are 2 all-pro level players and a guy who's capable of playing at a Pro Bowl level in Iffy. So to me, again, those are 2 guys, or Christian Parker, that's a guy that if he came in, yes, he runs a lot of hybrid schemes. It's not just, ton of man coverage and some zone coverage. So Christian Parker coming into that kind of situation, I think he could do a great job. And the thing I want to mention here is, yes, like his resume says that he likes to use different types of zone coverages, confusing defenses at the last second. That's another thing I forgot to mention. A lot of his defense, like they try to line up, switch their personnel at the last second before the offense is about to snap, so it's much harder to read the defense. Regardless of all of that, even in this past year, Philly, they ranked, I believe, 7th or 8th in running the most man coverage in the NFL, and Detroit was like 4th or 5th. So, I know that's not his pedigree, but the stats don't lie in that sense. The stats don't lie. So if he can come into Detroit and there can be some kind of fusion there, I think that could actually work out really great for the Lions if, they don't necessarily think Shep is ready to ascend to become the defensive coordinator. If Dennis Allen is poached by Ben Johnson, I think Christian Parker is a great option for the Lions to consider this year. So, lots of great defensive coordinator, candidates in this hiring cycle, in my opinion, and not that many great offensive coordinator hires. Like, I feel like most of the big good offensive minds, they're all like they're all going for head coaching jobs right now, or they're too young, right? They're too young. So for me, the defensive coordinator job, the defensive coordinator search, to me, a lot more wide open, a lot more, a lot of better options for the Lions to look outward. And then for the offense, that's why I think that they should look more towards the internal side of things and look at Scotty Montgomery and, Tanner Engstrand. Whereas on the defensive side, they have a lot of other options with, Shep, Dennis Allen, Aubrey Pleasant, and Christian Parker. Those 4 guys, in my opinion, best options for Lions. You guys, please let me know which other, coordinators you think potentially for the Lions could be great in terms of scheme fit, as well as what Dan Campbell has said he's looking for in the media over the last few days. Please put them down in the comment section below. I'd really be happy to hear them. Start a conversation, keep this community growing. I'll be here to talk about the Pistons probably later today in terms of the game recap. And until then, I'll see you guys later. Peace.